Revolutionary greetings, comrades. President Mnangagwa was in Bulawayo to discuss the issues relating to Gukurahundi. In his discussion, he has come up with a solution. And the solution is that the chiefs must be the ones that lead this process of finding closure. And we argue that was already started on a wrong footing. President Mnangagwa himself is named as a perpetrator. There are statements that it is alleged he made when he was Minister of State Intelligence in the Prime Minister's office that triggered or instigated the genocide. It is also President Emmerson Mnangagwa, when he was Minister in the Prime Minister's office, Minister of State Intelligence, who boarded the same plane with Dr. Joshua Nkomo. Upon arriving in Bulawayo, he then drove to a farm where he then made the famous arms discovery, which most of those firearms or military hardware were for use by Umkhonto weSizwe, an armed wing of the African National Congress. It is also President Emmerson Mnangagwa and the then Prime Minister, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, who used the pretext of the tourist disappearance were later found dead along Victoria Falls Road. That led them in deploying the military known as Gukurahundi. It is former President, was then Prime Minister Robert Mugabe, and the other cabinet ministers. I'm not very sure if President Mnangagwa was in that trip, who went to North Korea and signed an agreement with North Korea soon after independence for North Korea to provide instructors to train the 5th Brigade. Now, we can continue giving a background. and we know that the British rewarded the commander of the 5th Brigade, the late Terence Shearer, by scholarship to start in the military academy in the United Kingdom. So we can continue giving this background. And the question, therefore, that we should ask: what was the involvement of traditional leadership at that time for them today to be said to be the custodians in resolving the Gukurahundi issue or genocide? What happened to the chiefs that were alleged to have been members of ZAP at the time? Were they spared? What happened? So as communists want to argue that President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his government have started on a wrong footing by prescribing a solution, and that it is the traditional leaders who should find a closure to this matter. We also know that the apartheid state contributed to the genocide by training some dissidents alleged to have been members of SuperZap. In fact, the creation of SuperZap itself, just like Renamo and UNITA, was a project of apartheid South Africa or apartheid state. So if we are to find a solution, we must begin to say, why did we have Gukurahundi in the first place? That's where we should be starting from. Why did we have a genocide? Once we answer this question, we must then begin to say, how then do we find closure? Then we can all of us prescribe a solution. Former Vice President of Zimbabwe, Honorable Mpelekezela Mpho, once said, the imperialist forces were involved in Gukurahundi. And if indeed the Gukurahundi genocide took an international dimension, why do we then want to localize the solution by saying the traditional leaders are better placed to deal with this question? In fact, how many MK comrades were arrested during Gukurahundi? How many Zipra comrades were arrested and they died during Gukurahundi? And how do traditional leaders begin to find a solution on a military operation that led to a genocide? So we must ask these questions. So it is our argument that it is wrong for President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his government to prescribe a solution. What, in fact, government should be doing is to say, let's have a debate, which is not choreographed. Let's have a debate, a discussion on Gukurahundi by, firstly, talking about the cause, what triggered it. Once we then all of us agree that this is what triggered Gukurahundi, then we will say, okay, if this was the cause of Gukurahundi, let's agree on how to resolve it. The Minister of Justice, Ziyambi, argues that the Unity Accord in 1987, a political agreement, by the way, resolved Gukurahundi. And he says this in international forums. Assuming Ziyambi is correct in his analysis, let's just assume for a moment that is correct. If Gukurahundi was resolved in 1987, what are the chiefs now doing? What are they expected to do? Are they now opening a matter that was resolved in 1987? So by saying the chiefs must resolve this matter, President Emmerson Mnangagwa was simply saying Minister Ziyambi is lying. And the President Emmerson Mnangagwa spent time in his speech saying there are political parties that are using Gukurahundi as a political tool to win votes. Let's assume that is also correct. on that score. If indeed the victims of Gukurahundi have found closure, they will ignore those political parties because their loved ones are no longer missing. They are no longer in mass graves. They've been allowed to mourn those that died, and they've been allowed to give them decent burial. Once all that has been done, then the president might then be correct to say others are using this for their political gains, and the people will simply ignore them because they've healed, they found a closure. But nothing of that sort has happened. So what President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his government, he wants the chiefs to carry out the government script of destroying evidence, because now the chiefs, and we know the chiefs traditionally, the chiefs, most of them always support a government. We saw it during the Smith regime. And those during white minority rule who never supported the white minority government were disposed. And the new chiefs were put into office because the chiefs were used during colonialism to advance the interests of colonialists in our communities. And those that are rejected were removed from office. And during slavery, we know again that in some countries, traditional leaders were the ones that were selling other Africans into slavery. And we know that any chief today in Zimbabwe who's going to reject the script from State House is going to be removed from office. When you are genuine in resolving or in finding solution to Gukurahundi, why do you then arrest people that go and they build a plaque in a memorial site, Balakwe? Why? Because we want to find a solution. And some chiefs actually attend, but you do not recognize the work they do and respect what they did, because they are not carrying your script. So you then want to appoint those that are beneficial of the government to carry out this task. So this is why we argue that we are starting on a wrong footing as a country. In fact, we should be studying how other countries who have gone through a genocide have dealt with this question in their own countries, and then say, in our own conditions, how do we deal with this question? So you can't, therefore, you cannot, because you're head of state, and impose your views on society, that I, as head of state, I've directed that it is the chiefs that are going to find a solution to this, when you are alleged to have made those statements when you're Minister of State Intelligence. It is not proper. Comrades, let's have this discussion. I've seen others, opportunistically, of course, who are then trying that because of the posts that they write on social media, be it Facebook or where, they might get favor from State House. They are beginning to ask ridiculous questions. Hey, do you think Gukurahundi was political? They want to be noticed by this system, by this regime. So please, comrades, share your views in the comment section. But as we argue, we're starting on a wrong footing. Let's all of us, if government is prepared for us to resolve this question, the first question we must ask, why did we deploy the 5th Brigade in communities to commit a genocide? Let us answer that question. Once we answer this question, then we're able to find a solution to this. Please share your views in the comment section, circulate this video, and please do subscribe. Otherwise, have a great day. Goodbye, comrades.